really love this trailer. I think that this second trailer for Deadpool is perfect. It was a wonderful Christmas gift to get yesterday from 20th Century Fox. I couldn't resist. It was the first present I opened, actually, because at 3:15 a.m. they dropped it. So when I checked my email first thing, there it was from Fox saying, the Deadpool trailer is live. So I clicked on it and I LOL'd quite a bit. So I'm very excited to discuss it with you in detail in this shot-by-shot review. Now, I have a lot of business concerns about Deadpool, but we'll see. As one of you pointed out in my main review for this trailer, there are some pretty sky-high box office projections for this film for its opening. We'll see. I think that's a little bit wishful thinking because it's so limited in its appeal, and it stars Ryan Reynolds, who is box office poison to most people. But we'll see. We'll see. I think this trailer is so good that there is, I will say, I think an outside chance that maybe those sky-high box office predictions will come to fruition, because I think that, well, this is the Green Band trailer, so we'll see how the R rating version of the film works out. But this movie right here, this Green Band, this is a very commercially viable film. And so I guess that's, if this film were being released, I would feel that maybe it could open with 75 million. But I'm not quite sure how it's going to fare with the R rating, because the $75 million opening for Deadpool would actually make it one of the biggest R-rated openings of all time, and that would be quite a feat if it could pull it off. But I just see like a limited appeal in this because of what they've done with the R rating. But anyway, this is a love fest review because I do love this Green Band trailer so much, so I'm excited to discuss it with you. And if you want to go and see what I have to say in my other discussion about, R rating versus PG-13 rating, you can click on the link in the video description to head over to that full review of the trailer. All right, but this is the shot-by-shot analysis. There's so much goodness. All right, let's get started. Also, a lot of really interesting elements. I think this is a pretty deep film, actually, which is weird for a Deadpool movie. All right, now this is great. I thought that this intro was filmed just for the Christmas Day release of the trailer. But lo and behold, this gentleman playing Dopinder, I have the IMDb page up here, is actually credited to the film himself. So maybe this is just one scene, and they've, the great thing about the Deadpool character is because he has this full face mask, Ryan Reynolds can go into the ADR booth and just loop over tons of dialogue. If a joke doesn't land in test screenings or in the edit, they can fix it. If they needed to do a PG-13 version or a PG-13 trailer, as you can see, they can come in here and they can easily fix it. So I think this movie perfectly lends itself to a simultaneous PG-13 and R-rated release. And some of you asked me if that's ever been done before when I discussed this in my other review. And the answer, for those of you wondering, is it has not been done. The King's Speech had a lot of swear words in it, so it actually became, there's like this one scene where the king swears a whole lot, and that actually earned it an R rating because you can only have so many swear words in your movie for it to qualify for PG-13. So they did cut a PG-13 version for school groups, but that came out later in the King's Speech's release because they did it after it was getting so much award nominations. They're like, okay, more people want to see it, let's give a PG-13 version. But I think this movie would be perfect, and it would give it extra publicity to really offer viewers the two different options. But anyway, this guy, Karen Sony, this taxi driver is going to be in the actual film, and he's also in Ghostbusters, interestingly enough. So good for him. He's actually finding a lot of really good opportunities. Hopefully they won't all be stereotyped. He's actually playing like a delivery guy in Ghostbusters, but hey, a start's a start. So I really like this scene. I like when he awkwardly climbs right there. That's hilarious. I'm not a big fan of potty humor, gross out humor, but I do like awkward humor. And I think it's hilarious how they're really playing up how weird it would be to hang out with someone who's in toe-to-toe, head-to-toe spandex. I think that's like really fantastic, and I think it's a really good way to have a running gag, like how awkward can things get with Deadpool. So I think that's hilarious, and I thought that was, this is, I think, it's a little bit like, gross out humor to some degree, but it's just so clever and so well executed that I have a lot of respect for it. So I thought that was hilarious. So he comes into the front seat. I like, Deadpool's so nice to so many people sometimes. So he's a fun character. I think that's why, everybody always assumes that he would be nice to you. They don't think that you would be on the receiving end of his ninja swords. But anyway, basically the difference between this shot and the R-rated version of the trailer and the PG-13 version is that it just pulls out so you can actually see the guy skewered on the swords. But I think this is effective, and I like the way they're saying, well, this isn't your, regular superhero story. I think that's a really good setup. And it makes me wonder if the movie's actually going to open with this action sequence to start things off with a bang, and then have a flashback, to give the origin of Deadpool. That sounds like a pretty smart way to set up the movie, actually. And it would put first basically an expanded version of the test footage that leaked, which got this movie greenlit in the first place. So it's always good to start your movie off with a bang, and so to have this really great, action sequence on the highway would be fantastic. Although we do know that Colossus and Negasonic Teenage Warhead show up here, so maybe they won't be able to do that. But very, very interesting. Now, I love this. Now, he's talking about, we had to go before I was in the spandex, right? Right there. I love it. A BTT viewer actually said, I love that you included this still in your trailer review, your initial trailer review. And as I responded back, well, it's oddly hypnotic. And again, this is more of that awkwardness, being around someone who wears spandex like that. And I think, I applaud, Ryan Reynolds for walking the fine line between trying to be like still somewhat sexy as the character, but also humorous. So I think it works really well. I think they found just the right size butt. I don't know if that's Ryan Reynolds' butt. Maybe it's a butt double. Maybe it's padded. I don't know. But I think it's absolutely hilarious. I think it's just the right size. It's to still be like sexy to some degree, but a little bit big that, I'm just verging on a little bit too big, so it's humorous. So I would say whoever did that butt shot is a genius. So I love it. I think that's absolutely hilarious. I can't believe that's thank you, Deadpool, for allowing us to discuss butt sizes in your trailer. Now, they're setting up the origin, okay? And this is a really fast way to do it. I almost wish they would kind of do that in the movie, where they're just like, yep, he's got cancer, we can help you. So this guy, I actually like this exchange quite a bit, where he says, what would you say if I told you I could do all these things? And I think that Ryan Reynolds' delivery here is excellent. Of course, he got his start on TV in a sitcom being absolutely hilarious, Two Guys, a Girl, and a Pizza Place. And as I have often said, abs are the worst thing that ever happened to Ryan Reynolds because he became so fixated with being a hot male lead that he forgot that his real superpower, Ryan Reynolds' superpower, is his humor. So I think his delivery is excellent here, and I like the idea of him saying, I'd say you sound like an infomercial, and the slap chop is a real product. I don't really know what product he mentions is the lame product. I don't know if that even is a real product, but slap chop is an actual infomercial product. So kudos for not making up a product, but actually referencing one that people remember because it seemed like a pretty good idea, right? Did anyone buy a slap chop? I'd be curious to know. All right, I did not, but I have seen the ad. All right, so I think that's hilarious. So, inappropriate gesture because, of course, it's a Deadpool movie. Now, this is right there. This is the lab where they're going to make Deadpool. We're very familiar with this kind of setup at this point. But this was majorly awesome to me because that's Marrow, right? That's got to be Marrow. I've seen a couple other people call this out. She doesn't have the telltale pink hair. I guess maybe that can come later. But I'm a big Marrow fan. Marrow is a very cool character. She briefly served with the X-Men. She's also been a part of, X-Force. She's run into Deadpool before. And I think she's the kind of character whose attitude, they eventually tried to make her like this really, they made her like a Beauty and the Beast type character. Like they started out, she's a beast, and then she became a beauty. And I think that was like, that was a good story arc when it was happening, but I think ultimately it kind of declawed the character, or deboned her. But her persona is really rough and that looks so gross actually when you look at it. Ugh, it's so tough to look at. But I think that's great. I think it's very well realized, and it emphasizes why Marrow would have the personality problems that she has in the comics. She's a Morlock from the Morlock tunnels. Storm goes down there and defeats Calypso, and she's like actually the de facto leader of the Morlocks because they respect her. It's a big storyline. They actually don't really use the Morlocks very much in the movies, which is a shame because they're so crucial to the X-Men history. But anyway, she has a very bad attitude, which I think really would, go very well with Deadpool. I think there would be a lot of great interactions there. So I hope this isn't just like a throwaway. I hope that maybe the character is utilized a little bit more here, or perhaps like in a sequel if they are so fortunate to make one. But the X-Men are one of the great things about X-Men movies is there are so many of them. It's so much fun to have them pop up in different ways and to see teams work together. And so I love that. I love that Marrow's there. I'm a big fan of Marrow. I really hope that she is in the film. And I think the visual effects on that are super well realized. Super well realized. All right. So I guess the name of the game here is Disgusting Superpowers. Now I like Ed Skrein is explaining we're going to make you a super slave here, okay? Ed Skrein was in the new Transporter movie. They tried to have him take over for Jason Statham. I thought he did actually a really good job watching that movie. It was like a real B Euro action film, but it was enjoyable. It was certainly watchable. I had a good time watching it. It came out like Labor Day weekend last year. It was like, I believe it was Labor Day weekend, but it was like Labor Day weekend. So it was super easy to watch. It was like a dead weekend at the box office or the theater. Nothing really new came out except for this film, and it served its purpose. It was something you could spend some time during the last weekend of the summer. But anyway, I thought he was very good, and I think he's well used here as the villain. I think I think it's easy to write off as a pretty boy, but I think he actually has some acting chops and a good personality, and he's very good at his action scenes in Transporter. So I suspect he'll be able to hold up his end of the action sequences with Deadpool quite well. Now, I love that they're like, you're going to be a super slave. I don't know why they would tell him. I guess they want to try and break his, I'd wait till he woke up maybe. I don't know. But maybe they made the classic mistake of feeling that everything's going to work out at this point of the plan. It's like, you jinxed it. They changed this line. Jose Canseco, it was angrier Posh Spice or something in the first trailer. So again, this is a good example of changing the lines, and just, that's another good thing. Like, you think you might have seen all the jokes in the movie? Well, they just keep changing them. So there are tons of jokes. Or maybe, since you can't do the ADR here, very often when they have improvised movies, they will just do a bunch of takes and the actors will just rattle off different jokes and then they'll see which one lands in the editing room. So that would give them lots of different things to work with here. So the Jose Canseco line, I actually like that a little bit better than the Posh Spice one. Although Gina Carano, I feel really bad for her here. We'll talk about it when we get to her a little bit later in the trailer. Now, obviously, some things are shown out of order. There's a fight a little bit later with like an explosion. We'll talk about it when we get to it in this trailer. But I think clearly the facility that makes him blows up. All right. But since he is indestructible now, he is okay and he can walk away from this disaster. But they've changed a little bit something here. Okay, in the comics, he looks like this not because of what has been done to him in the comics, it's Weapon X. I don't know if this is an offshoot of Weapon X or, like a facility on one of their satellite facilities. We'll see when we actually watch the movie. But anyway, he's supposed to have such horrible cancer and it's ravaging his body. I mean, cancer is a really, obviously people know how devastating it is, but I don't think people know how bad it can be to your epidermis. It really can eat away. If it gets to your skin, it can be just absolutely devastating if it spreads to that area, what it does to you. So the point is that he has such horrible cancer that this is the best that his healing factor can do. He has a healing factor basically like Wolverine. So in the comics, it's like you're being so ravaged by cancer that this is as much as it can be held back. It's that aggressive. And I thought that was really good. I think it underlined how hurt he is. And instead of it being something like, oh, I wish this hadn't happened to you, those evil guys at the facility did this to you. Like, why would they do that? They're like, oh, if he doesn't get any action, he'll definitely stay with us. It's like, although some of you pointed out, Deadpool gets lots of action, he just keeps the mask on. So I would have preferred to play up the fact that this is from his cancer, that it's just that bad. I think that would have been much more interesting and given the character a little bit more depth. I love this exchange. You don't need the exchange in the Red Band trailer. I like this when he's like, look at me. And he's like, I don't want to. And he's like, exactly. I was like, that's hilarious. That's a great give and take. And T.J. Miller, by the way, is actually very similar to Ryan Reynolds because they're both extremely funny, but neither one of them can really connect with audiences in a box office, a way that registers at the box office. So I don't know if this movie will redeem them both or allow them finally to rise to the level they're supposed to, or if it will just, they like double down on box office poison. You guys took 2 poisonous shots. Like, yikes. Maybe they'll cancel each other out. So he's decided, this is interesting. I hope they do something funny with it. The old making my own super suit montage. We've seen that all the time. I'd be curious to know what in the movie they decide to do for why he has this look, why he adopts this look, and how he builds it. And can he really sew? I think there are a lot of interesting, funny ways to go with this. And I hope they do. I think they will. This is a very funny trailer. Makes me feel much better about the humor in this. Now, this is really important. All right, well, first of all, I don't know about you. Whatever you see a thing like this now, I instantly think of Jessica Jones and the Purple Man. Like, or I guess you used to think Homeland, but now I'm thinking Jessica Jones. So I thought that was interesting. So let's see. That person, if you want to know who he's stabbing, the first person is the guy who pitches him at the diner with the infomercial. And then the second person, we haven't really seen them yet. We don't know who that is exactly. So we'll see. All right. I hope there's more action sequences, by the way, than just on the bridge. They're like, we always cut to that. Hopefully they're saving it or they're not quite ready in post. All right, blind Al. Now here's this fight. I think that's Ed Skrein that he's fighting. I'm not quite sure, but you can see he's still in his hospital gown. So I think this is going to be how he breaks out and it explodes, and that's how we go back to that earlier shot of him, rising from the ashes, literally. Okay. Now, I love the way the X-Men are brought in here. I think this is really fantastic. Now, as I said, Wolverine, Weapon X facility, so they definitely are very much occupy the same universe. So it'll be very easy for Fox to have the crossover here. But interestingly enough, they haven't really chose other X-Men that are established to be in this movie. There's some rumor that Hugh Jackman will show up, and he kind of owes it to Ryan Reynolds after, producing, X-Men Origins Wolverine and, really doing this character a huge disservice. So I think it would be a solid if Wolverine would come in there and fix it. Hugh Jackman. And he has been helping to promote this movie, at least via social media, so don't be surprised if he shows up here. And that would be fantastic. I would love that. And I think they should actually, closer to the release date, advertise that. I think that would help sell the movie to maybe people who are on the fence or maybe even thinking of not going. I think don't underestimate the draw of Hugh Jackman in an X-Men movie. So he's like, I don't have any time for your X-Men bull. I don't know how the X-Men know about Deadpool, though, or why they feel a responsibility to talk to him, or also why they're so open to having a dialogue with him, right? I mean, if this is the first time they're meeting, because this is an origin story for Deadpool, why wouldn't they be like, what are you doing, man? Maybe Wolverine's already met him by the time this action sequence happens, if it's not at the beginning of the movie, so he's vouched for him. We'll see. This is a Russian, actor/stunt person playing Colossus. He's getting a lot of attention. I think he physically looks like Colossus, but I still feel they haven't gotten this character right. I mean, he's really just there as a giant special effect, where I think Negasonic Teenage Warhead is going to have a lot of fans by the time this movie is over. We'll get to her. She has some great moments in this trailer. But this is really a funny exchange. He's like, no one's getting hurt, and I love that. And I love how he covers for it, where he's like, that guy was up there before we got here. I think that's hilarious. I really liked that. I thought it was fantastic. That's, to me, why I like Deadpool. Now, right here, she's saying, I have played a lot of... Now, this is, I think, a huge potential spoiler. I'm very curious to see which direction this character is going to go in. Vanessa, played by Monica Baccarin. Although I have to say, I have a hard time looking at her now after knowing about all the personal drama behind the scenes on Gotham. Her love interest on the show, played by Benjamin McKenzie, Commissioner Gordon. They had an affair in real life, and she was in the middle of leaving her husband, but it's been really sloppy and not particularly handled on the up and up. And she's basically having a child with Benjamin McKenzie, but it's kind of like, it's not cool, man. Like the way they broke up with her husband, and they kind of jumped the gun of her husband apparently said, I came over to my ex-wife's house, or the woman I'm divorcing, and there's this new guy in there playing with my kid, I've already been replaced. And it's just not cool, But maybe I think she might be playing a villain here, maybe someone who set up Deadpool. I wouldn't be surprised if she's the one who gives him his cancer, perhaps, to set this in motion. I don't know. But she's playing a shapeshifter, and I'm very curious because, you better watch out, Jennifer Lawrence, although Jennifer Lawrence doesn't want to really stay in the X-Men movies anyway, unless she said they make it worth her while money-wise. But this could be another shapeshifter, and they could maybe just shift everyone's attention to her. But that's when she says, I've played many roles in my life. That's because she's a shapeshifter, and so she has to, take on different personas to sell it. So I'm very curious to see if in this sequence she'll reveal it to him, what exactly her motives are. I think it's very, very interesting. So I'm curious. And I'm curious to see how much money they're going to spend on doing her shapeshifting, right? I mean, one of the great things about Mystique in the X-Men movies is to see her shapeshift. It's very cool. They come up with really interesting ways to do it. It's a great, even a great audio, cue, when she shifts. I love it. I think it's really cool. And so I'm curious to see if they do something similar with this character, Vanessa, Copycat, or if they maybe try and have a different kind of way that she changes shape. So I think it's really, I'm very excited about it. So more fighting. Now this is great. All right, there. Okay, he says, hi, I'm Francis. That's actually Ed Skrein's character, Ajax. So he's looking for Ed Skrein, being like, where is this guy? Of course, again, I'm glad he said, hi, I'm Francis on there, because no one would know from that illustration who, of course, he's dealing with. But I think it's a very Deadpool way to look for somebody. I like that a lot. I think it's perfectly in character. This is great. I love it when he says, wait, did I leave the stove on? It's classic Deadpool. Very well executed. Now here, poor Gina Carano. I mean, I'm glad she's getting work. And someone in my in the main review, my initial reaction to this trailer had said, this is why I didn't want Gina Carano to play Wonder Woman. She's a little too butch. But you know what? A lot of this is the way she's styled, right? And I guess they're doing it for a good joke here, but it really is at Gina Carano's expense. And Haywire, she's not a great actress, but that's the Steven Soderbergh movie that she starred in, but she did a nice job with her action sequences. I think she's really trying, and I think they've thrown her a little bit under the bus personally in the way they've set her up for this movie. But that's, they've really played up that masculine aspect there with her design. Now that, there I was like, well, talk about undercutting people. I think that hitting Colossus like that and having him fly back, I mean, geez, Colossus. I mean, I don't think he comes out so well here either. But here, Negasonic Teenage Warhead steps up. Love the tweeting joke. Absolutely love it. Who hasn't been dealing with someone who does that? Who hasn't been that person themselves? You're like, I'm sending a tweet, or I'm texting something, or I'm looking something up. Just give me a minute. I just think it's fantastic. And I think this actress does a fantastic job selling the joke. I mean, that's hard. Good comedy is a two-way street. It's a team effort. Ryan Reynolds can't do all the heavy lifting himself. And so I'm really glad they've given him good people, or some good people at least, to play off of, and they're able to, it's like tennis. I think that's a really important thing to remember. And so she's doing a great job hitting the ball back at him. So I love it. Now, I like this a lot because I think the visual effects on her are spectacular. Now, this is actually not at all this character's powers in the comics. They've totally reimagined her. She was someone who was almost like a telepath. She basically could see the future. She was a little bit like Mystique's lover Destiny in the comics. And she basically foresaw the destruction of Genosha to Emma Frost. That was her only purpose for being there. But I think obviously the makers of this movie were like, that's such a great name, we have to use it. And who cares about the rest of the character, because she never was a really big character anyway. And I would agree with that. I think Negasonic Teenage Warhead doesn't seem to have anything to do with telling the future. I think premonitions. I think obviously it sounds like a really powerful mutant, and that's what they've turned her into. So I loved that. That was great. Now this thing about prom sex, this was the only joke that didn't land for me. It was trying a little bit too hard. It was almost like falling back on blue material. Sometimes blue material can be very funny. Blue is a comedic term for going raunchy, basically. And, there's two ways you can do it. Some people are very good at doing blue humor right off the bat. They specialize in it. They're very funny. Like Louis C.K. is a really gifted blue comedian. However, sometimes when someone's not doing well, or it's like a crutch, they go, okay, well, people always laugh at inappropriate things because there's always at least that uncomfortable factor. So that's sometimes comedians will go blue for that reason. And this joke to me comes off that way. I just feel like it requires too much thought. You're just like, what? Why? When would she get upset? Do you think she's gonna get how would this happen? Later on, the person's gonna be upset. She's gonna be upset that she was pressured into teen sex. The joke requires too much explanation and thought. It doesn't hit as hard as the other ones. So I didn't like that joke. I thought it was too desperate. And there we go. And that's the end of this trailer. This is, again, the Green Band trailer. I really like it. I think it's a perfect Deadpool trailer. I think this, to me, again, seems like a very commercially viable film. But we'll see how the R-rated version does in theaters. But I'm curious what you guys think of this. What were your favorite moments in the trailer? And then also, I guess what I want to leave you with is, which version of the character do you like? I'm familiar with Deadpool from the comics, but a lot of you have brought up, and I think this is very interesting, that a lot of people are familiar with Deadpool from the video games. And so there's really, again, this is a disconnect that's happening across the board when it comes to comic book movies. I think we're going to see it also in DC, where, the video games, because they're so successful these days are pulling these characters away from their comic book roots and, current storylines, in an effort to appeal to the bigger audience, which is perfectly valid reasoning, I think, from a business standpoint. But I don't know, ideally they can reconcile the two fandoms, the comics and the video games, and to me this trailer does that. But I know a lot of you who like the video games miss the R-rated elements that are apparently very, very much a part of the video game version of the character. So we'll see, but I like this quite a bit. I think it looks very good, and I'm curious to see how the actual final product turns out. All right, thanks for watching. Bye.